Hey, what's up, guys? It's ex-Morgan here, and I have some awesome guests for you.
Ew, you so just totally spit on me. Holy crap.
What is so funny? Do you want to do the intro, Ariane?
Pull yourself together, woman.
I don't know.
Find your zen, baby. Find your inner peace.
And you're allowed to laugh during the video. It just needs to make sense.
Right. Yeah, because...
That's the thing for me when I get like this, it doesn't make sense. It's like in the temple when you're not supposed to
She's
laugh.
the church giggles. Stop, they're so
You need to
contagious.
say that as part of your intro. Okay, now that the church giggles are over, we can begin. Alright.
I doubt it. Hey, what's up, guys? Ex-Morgan here, and I have some really awesome guests for you today. I am so excited about this. I have my aunt, Ariane, and her husband, Mike. I am so excited. I've been trying to get them on this channel since I started making these videos because they are, well, they're basically just awesome. And they were the only ones in my family that were supportive during my faith crisis. And they just loved me through it, and they were like, we don't care if you're Mormon, we don't care if you're not, we just love you no matter what, and it was amazing. So I'm so excited to introduce you guys to them today, and they are going to be talking about their story a little bit and some advice they have on navigating a mixed faith marriage. It can be so difficult, but they have some great advice for us today. I'm super excited to hear from them. Let's get started. So Ariane wasn't always my favorite aunt.
Wow.
Gotcha with the truth bomb.
News.
But she worked very hard to work herself up the ranks past the other really great candidates.
I was trying so hard.
So we're going to hear about their story and how they left several years ago. But just a little bit about me and Ariane's relationship. I guess, when did we start getting closer? It was just a few years ago. It was because I came to BYU, Idaho to go to college, and then I started kind of visiting occasionally. Do you remember any?
Yeah, I don't know specifically, except just within the last couple of years, and then that fateful day when you called me and told me you were questioning.
Yes. So that's kind of, that makes sense. So because Ariane had left years ago, I mean, I knew like that she was out, and I didn't understand it at the time, but I knew that she was still like her awesome self. And so when I started questioning, that was because it would have been last February, that I didn't know who to call when I was freaking out. So I called her, and she was like, it's gonna be okay. And so then I think that's why we started to kind of get a lot closer, because, but I even remember as a teenager, like you guys were always just so like loving to me and kind, and Mike helped me through a lot of issues when I was like first at college. Yeah. Because I was dealing with so much anxiety and stress and everything, and he had some great tips for me. Anyway, yeah, so, yeah, I guess me kind of having my faith crisis brought us kind of closer together because I really needed that support.
Yeah.
And it was
bond you.
Yes, and I remember the cognitive dissonance I was feeling initially, and I thought about you a lot because I kept thinking, like, but she's so awesome, and if God is so mad at people who leave the church, in my head I thought, then, but would he really be mad at Ariane? Because I thought about all the people you had helped. See, Ariane, she's awesome, and she has just scooped people up into her loving arms, and who people with faith crises or whatever issues, and she's just created a really cool friendship with so many people and making them feel loved even though they may not be loved by their family or supported by their family, whatever. And I looked up to her a lot, and her leaving the church, in my brain I was like, how is it that God could be upset with her? And so seeing her really helped inspire me and made me feel safer to be myself. So thank you for that. So anyway, so I guess we're going to start just a little bit about, so Mike was the first one out of the two to leave the church.
This is my hot husband.
Yes, right. Yes. He might do some flexing for us. So I'm to blame
for all of this.
Yes, yeah, because
not the first time.
You inspired her, and then she inspired me, and now now we're inspiring thousands. And now it's getting broadcast out. Yes, so if you guys are upset with anything that happens, his email is going to be in the description below.
Ruh-roh.
So go ahead and just tell us a little bit about, I mean, you grew up in the church, right?
Yeah.
Your parents were both members.
Grew up in Lehi, Utah. I mean, you don't get more of a Mormon community than that. So I did all the right things. Eagle Scout. I was even on the seminary council.
Whoa!
That was like a big deal.
Yes.
Went on a mission. Looking back now, like I'm at peace with all that stuff, but for a long time, I was just in kind of a state of inner turmoil and conflict because, even though I'd done all these quote unquote right things, there was just a lot of gaps that wasn't being filled. So for me, honestly, I think it all started on my mission. So I went on a mission to a foreign country. I was in Mexico. If we're talking about when our shelves started to break, maybe many of the viewers have experienced that. For me, my shelf really broke on my mission. I remember with a lot of clarity, we were teaching a family about, our way is better than your way kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And the husband of this family didn't want to listen to the missionaries. Yeah. So he was one of those that we'd been warned about as missionaries, like the whole family might accept it except for the husband, and you have to be ready for that. And so I was a little bit intimidated by this character, and I'll never forget one time we were talking to his wife and his children, and he motioned for me to follow him. So I broke a mission rule. I left my companion for a couple minutes. Wow. I followed this guy. We go into this was a wealthier family in Mexico. He had this beautiful den with library books, and right in the middle of the den, he has this 6-foot Christus on the cross statue. And this was a very devoted Catholic family. Right. And we were there to convert them, right? Because that's what you do as missionaries. Right. And I'll never forget, he rested his hand on my shoulder, and he looked at me. And there was like some real feeling and emotion in his face, and he said, "You and I aren't different. We really don't believe in different because I realize my Christ is your Christ." Wow. And I still get chills like sharing that story. I don't share that story very often, but I felt what he said. Suddenly I went from this really small box of Mormonism is this, with our description of what I thought God was, to suddenly, it was bigger than that. It was so much bigger than that. Because I felt what he was saying. I'm like, wait a minute, if his Christ is the same as my Christ, and I'm telling him he has to repent and do it a different way, what's the point of that? This guy's okay. So I felt like he was okay. Yeah. So I buried that, for a long time. That was just on my heart for many, many years. Yes. Came back from my mission, did all the right things. Again, we got married in the temple.
Totally worthy.
Oh, right. We're going there, aren't we? Okay. If you say so, Bishop.
So you kind of had, you had these kind of moments where your mind was being opened up a little more, but then you kind of, you shelved it. Right. Right?
Yeah.
And then you get married, you guys have kids, and things, and you're just kind of going through the motions.
Life was going, that train had left the station, right? That's what you did. You got a job, you got married in the temple, you started your family, all of that was going on. But honestly, I was kind of just going through the motions. Yeah. Nothing to me was more brutal than sitting through an elders quorum meeting. Yes, that was the worst. Just hearing everyone talk. I mean, the only thing lacking in an elders quorum meeting is cigar smoke. Because everything else is oh, good old boys. I don't know. I just it never sunk up with me. And then I was even in the elders quorum presidency at one time. Mm-hmm. I know my family was so proud about that because they were worried about me.
Right.
Well, and keep in mind, I knew he wasn't super stoked about church anymore, so I would ask them to give us callings together. Oh. So that...
Okay, this is the first time I'm hearing this.
I'm pretty sure I may have said something like, "Can you keep us together, teaching primer or something?" Because that's something he doesn't mind. Wow. He didn't mind. We taught the 10-year-olds together.
Well, and no shame,
You put the bishop up to that.
I may have. I don't remember specifically.
That would make sense because we had a lot of callings together, single adults, primary ward activities.
You didn't do ward activities.
We were on that together.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you're hearing this the first time. I'm hearing this the first time. Totally crazy.
Well,
okay.
And kudos to her, right? She was trying to save your soul.
Save my soul.
I was concerned.
So, wait, it didn't work.
No, didn't work.
She tried so hard.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So, all right. So that was I was just going through the motions for a little while, and then the deal breaker really happened. I think 2008, Proposition 8 in California.
Yes.
To me, that was a bit of a deal breaker because I was like, wait a minute, like, if God is loving and He made us and He created us as humans and then as families, what difference does it make how we define a relationship within love? That made absolutely no sense to me.
Yes.
I was like, I did not sign up for this. That felt very bigoted to me. Yeah. And I remember how upset I was with the company that I worked for at the time. I had an intern working for me, a BYU kid, and we would get into a lot of arguments over this because he was very devout about going back to California and picketing, to oppose Proposition 8 and all this stuff. And I was just like, why? Like, that shouldn't matter. Like,
who's it hurting?
It's a church that prides itself in the beauty of free will.
Right.
And yet, not for some people, right?
Exactly. It made very little sense to me. And then from there, for a couple more years, I kind of pretended along. And then I think this is where your story starts to come in because I just didn't want to do it anymore. I had reached that point where I just could not do it anymore.
Yes. And really quick, before we jump to Ariane, I want to know, do you feel like you were ever, we use the Reddit term TBM.
Yeah.
True, like, did you have a testimony?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, I preached it every day for 2 years. I mean, I had the burning in the bosom. I read Moroni 10, verse 2 or whatever. Like, it's really interesting in the sense in my professional life. I've kind of moved on into other areas of leadership development and stuff. And what's interesting is you can convince yourself of almost anything if you really want to.
It's true.
And you can manipulate your emotions. And I think organizations are really good at that, of manipulating a story that creates emotions. And then we think that's truth when it's not an objective truth. It's a subjective truth. And I think that there's a lot to be said about that.
That was so well said. Now, I can't wait for your podcast to come out. He's planning on you're working on writing a book right now, right?
Yeah, book's in the works. Podcast is in the works. So
so we'll have to have you guys back on and we'll plug
probably
that
different topic than what we're talking about. It's going to be much more like personal development and
yes, but that's what this is all about, right? And that's what I want this whole channel to be about, So thank you. So that was great. So then I guess we'll jump into kind of hearing Ariane's perspective as Mike was kind of falling away. Your thoughts, your feelings, what did you think was going to happen? How did you handle it?
So, I gave all my laughing earlier. So, one night we're laying in bed and Mike says, I can't do it anymore. And
Not that. Definitely not that bit.
I'm sorry, I couldn't do it.
So one night, Mike's in bed and he says, I can't do church anymore.
Right.
And I just felt this sinking feeling in my stomach and I felt ill and I didn't know how to respond and I don't think I probably said much. I don't remember, but I just remember how I felt.
Yeah.
Because you're told for so long that now you're not married forever and your kids aren't going to get to heaven with you and all of these crazy beliefs that just start going through your head of, oh my God, are we screwed?
Yeah.
And I think because my emotions were so high, I think my body physically couldn't even handle it because that night I had a gallbladder attack.
Oh, man.
That same night, gallbladder attack. middle of the night.
Wow.
In fact, I called your dad for some advice.
Yeah.
I couldn't even process it. It was really, really difficult. But we have always been all about communicating in our marriage.
Yeah.
We tell each other virtually everything. There are very, very few secrets between us.
Right.
And he had
Well,
said
one
it
of the
in...
secrets just got outed that you were telling the bishop that I should be.
That's true.
That was a secret.
true.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, sorry.
And can I just jump in and say, like, I felt so guilty from all of that because
For her pain.
Because I knew, like, this had been building up in my head for a long time. I mean, a few years at this point. I was just tired of the pretend stage. I couldn't do it anymore.
Oh,
And I was feeling that internal pressure that you put on yourself of not living your truth. So she didn't take it so well. And I was being very careful with my words of how I was phrasing it.
He was being very kind.
And then her body was basically shutting down as a result of the bomb that I dropped on her.
Yeah.
That I couldn't do it anymore. That that belief in the church was just not possible for me.
Yeah.
That's really what I had said.
And honestly, he didn't really tell me why, because he knew I wouldn't understand. He just...
You can't just dump all that info on them. It'll just...
It won't make sense.
Yeah.
And so I just had to process for a while, and he said, I will support you. I will help you get the kids ready for church. I just can't go with you anymore. He said, but I will support you if you want callings, whatever it is. I will be there for you. And so that was enough for then, you know.
Yeah.
It was enough to get me through it and to keep us going.
Did you feel like you saw it coming? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Those callings could only
We
take
had
us
had
so
a few
far.
arguments. We had had a few arguments about Prop 8 because I still didn't believe being gay was okay.
Right.
And,
right.
you know, why would God do that to someone?
Yeah.
Anyway, so obviously my feelings have changed since I was at Love Loud last night.
What?
Anyway, so I continued to attend church on Sundays, and I started to really, really watch him and his behavior because I would talk...
You're expecting the fallout.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was expecting all of those terrible things they tell you about. And I talked to a couple ladies that I respected in the ward, and they were like, well, he will lose God, you know, but you'll be okay. And in my mind, I was like, that's not accurate because he's kinder than he's ever been. He was kinder than he'd ever been, and I think because he was coming to peace with himself and his choices.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm like, that doesn't add up. What else doesn't add up?
Right. It's kind of a red flag. Like, wait, he's not evil all of a sudden, so what's not adding up? I felt exactly the same when Jared left. I was like, oh, he's gonna become this, horrible, and it's such a cult mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. So, kind of the agreement that we had reached in order to function as a marriage, because you face that pressure ever since you're a little kid of like, if the marriage doesn't work out, if you're married in the temple and one of the partners chooses not to, then they're really shirking their celestial commitments.
Yeah.
And so you're expecting all this fallout, but we had so many really interesting conversations during that point in time. And if you're okay with me sharing this, to be honest, our marriage was a bit touch and go for a while.
During that year,
yes. that was a tough year
because we just weren't on the same page,
we weren't
mentally,
on the same
emotionally.
Well, and he's probably struggling, dealing with the fallout of his family being upset.
That's a whole nother story.
And it is, but there's so much going on, and it's like, so it's completely understandable.
Yeah, and I'm feeling on my own at church with 4 little kids, wondering why the hell am I doing this?
Right, I've been so good in my life, why is this happening to me? Right, that's how I felt.
So, well, we had kind of reached an agreement that, number one, we were always going to just openly communicate with each other about everything. So if there's any viewers who are going through a faith crisis, like we've been there, and the one thing that we've talked about is a faith crisis doesn't have to end in a divorce. I know you've been through that.
Yeah.
But how many times does a faith crisis lead to a split up marriage, which is, again, another contradiction of the church, in my opinion, because they always want to create family togetherness, but sometimes the belief system is so structured and limited and rigid that it can't operate outside of that very well. And I just didn't want that to be us, so we had reached an agreement that we were going to commit ourselves to each other, not necessarily religion. I remember one particular argument that we had, I had said, well, I married you, I didn't marry the church. And I think that distinction can get really foggy for a lot of people. Yes. So my relationship was with you, it wasn't with the church. And so we can fix this. We don't need to add another element to it to make it more complicated. Yeah. I remember we had talked about that.
Well said.
Well, and when I was saying that I was watching him, like I was watching him pretty closely, his behavior and so forth. And here was something that was so important to our marriage is that he did not bash the church. I didn't know why he didn't believe. He just told me he just didn't believe. And if he had bashed the church,
it would have made you cling tighter.
Yep, and if he would have been angry and bitter, he would have lived up to all those expectations the church has of people that leave, but he didn't. And so I really think if he had bashed and if he'd angry and bitter and then all of a sudden started trying alcohol and stuff, I would have been flipped out, right? But he was very respectful. He was like, I'm not going to try alcohol until you're comfortable with it and different things like that. And so that made a big difference for us.
Huge.
Yeah, we both had to really give each other space to kind of explore who we were, but we had just kind of had to come up with different commitments. The commitment to myself was I wasn't going to bash the church because I truly believed when I said, whatever it was that you needed to believe in, that was for you. And if you needed to believe in the church, I was going to respect that all the way. Yeah. And you did reciprocate that back to me because they'd head off to church on Sundays and I'd head up into the mountains.
That was his church.
I have to say that I experienced God at a much, much different level than I ever had during that time frame because I experienced God through nature. So that was important. We both grew and explored within those parameters that we had set up.
Yeah.
And I didn't badmouth the church because I figured at some point she would have more questions and then we could have that conversation.
Yeah.
That was so smart.
Well, and it was interesting because he was out for a while before he told his parents. And I helped him write a letter to his parents telling
even
them.
Though she was still in.
I was still in, but I was pretty good at, crafting letters. And so I got this. So anyway, I helped him write a letter to his parents telling them why he's leaving. That is my dog, and I apologize. Yeah, he wants him. Anyway, and their response to him leaving was so unkind and so harsh, and I found myself defending him to his parents even though I was still in.
Right, because you were seeing what a great man he was,
and they were just tearing him down, and to see my best friend and someone who I knew his heart.
Yes.
And it's not like he wanted to be a reject and leave and stuff. He just his mind was too open to stay.
So, a question for you guys is, during him leaving, officially, were either of you worried that, the marriage was going to fail because of that? Was it, especially on your end, if you're thinking, does she want a worthy priesthood holder, or...
I maybe not the worthy priesthood holder part, but, we were not on the same page with something really important. So I knew that we couldn't exist like that indefinitely. It was just kind of a stopgap commitment while we figured some stuff out.
Right.
And before, if a decision needed to be made to part ways, then so be it. But, the idea of having the open communication and not bad-mouthing the church and allowing each other to grow.
I mean, I probably had a few concerns. That was probably, in the back of my mind a bit, because the whole eternal marriage thing.
It was a concern for me.
Because the church leaders will say that the only good reasons for divorce is abuse or apostasy.
Right.
And,
it's a great reason.
So So that's why I ask, you
Yeah.
know, because I know when Jared left initially, it was a worry that I had, but I think even more so Jared was worried that I would want to leave him because of him not being the worthy.
That's a very normal fear.
I think that is normal. Yeah,
sure.
For me, it was more of the, can we just be happy?
Yes.
Can we just find happiness?
Yes.
And I knew it. Funny.
We did.
18 years and counting. So,
Right.
yeah, it was just a very awkward phase because there wasn't a textbook for this. There wasn't anybody to talk to.
Yes.
I mean, I had my own friends that kind of helped me through some things, and I know you did too. I feel like that was really important that both of us had kind of independent people.
It's a very important step.
Talk some things through.
Yeah.
My friend John was amazing. He helped me see some things so clearly.
Yeah, that's good.
Can I just say the one thing? It was so funny. My friend John and I, we went to coffee. So we were, even though I couldn't have alcohol, I did drink coffee, which later led to your shelf breaking even more.
Yes,
right?
I will get to that.
Another story. But
Ariane's
John,
a coffee addict.
we
Spoiler
both,
alert.
6 ounces a day, baby.
and I'm 60 ounces a day. No, I just remember one time Ari had said, I just don't want to get too smart, you know? I just don't want to be smarter than like a church leader. I don't want to be one of those people that gets too smarter than a church people. And I was just like, oh, no, she did not say that. So I told my friend John, and John had a notebook, and he just started, no. It was just very funny at the same time, but it really exposed, I don't know, kind of I think a brainwashing element.
Yes.
It's very cultish in the fact that you can't challenge or question a leader. Yeah. What other institution does that? Only cults do that. You know, I mean, and so to hear it that expressively said, John coming back, it was kind of funny. Yeah.
Yes. And what was your thought when you were saying that?
I mean, they warned you.
Yes.
They warned you that people that believe in science, like, watch out for them.
Watch out for science.
There's like, don't judge me because I only believe in science.
Yeah, no, and there's that scripture that's like people who think they're wise, you know, they don't lean on God, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Lean on the wisdom of men.
Yes. Is that, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so then go ahead and continue.
Okay, so I'll just skip over to. So watching Mike was like one of my first things, and then he said he wanted to start drinking coffee. For God's sake, and I was like, oh. And he's like, honey, I've researched it. Like, it's got a lot of health benefits, and I was like. So I started researching, and I looked up like the Mayo Clinic, like reliable sources.
Right.
And and I was like, weird. There's like a lot of health benefits, like with Alzheimer's and
this doesn't sound right.
Keeping you regular. I mean, he's gonna remember the whole list. I don't remember details, people. But anyway, I was like, huh. So I was in the Relief Society presidency at the time, just saying. And I asked in class, I'm like, so does anyone know why we can't drink coffee? And it was silence.
Crickets.
And I'm like, well, damn, I just researched it, and it's good for you.
You didn't say damn, though.
No.
Wait, did you tell them that it was good for you?
Oh, sorry. No, I said that in my head.
You said in your head. Okay.
But
Just wanted to clarify.
But I did talk to one of my
I was
neighbors.
about to have even more respect for you than I already did, but that's okay. We'll just keep it at the normal.
We don't want to put me too high on the pedestal.
I know, you're already...
I'm going to tumble
She's pretty
down. But I did tell one of my neighbors, who's one of my friends, and I was like, so I actually did some research, and like coffee's like got a bunch of health benefits. And she goes, well, you can believe the internet, or you can believe the prophet.
Oh.
And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go with the internet this time. Internet for 200 points.
And meanwhile, over in my corner, I'm like, her shelf is breaking. There might be some hope here. I'm holding on to hope.
Oh man. Had you really hoped kind of all along that she would kind of come to that understanding?
Oh.
Yeah,
Of course.
absolutely.
Everybody hopes that.
Because it's enlightening and it's free, and I
Yes.
felt so much happier. And
Yes.
I just wanted other people in my life to experience the same thing.
That's beautiful.
Some people are open to it, some people are not. I just wanted her to be light and free and not be so encumbered with all the weight of all the stuff, especially the stuff that doesn't even make sense, like drinking coffee. That's just stupid.
Yes. It is.
It really is. Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, and when you're going through the process of leaving, you know this.
Yeah.
Like, I filled up 2 full journals journaling about this, talking to God, meditating. I'm sitting at the river, just trying to get my questions answered. And I had a huge realization. Okay, you remember that war in heaven?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So in the war in heaven,
1/3 decided not to.
yes, but Satan's plan was that you didn't get to choose for yourself to do good. You had to make people do good, make people make good choices, right?
Yes.
So that we were going to be forced to be good people. Sounds
Right,
terrible. And Jesus' plan was that we would get to choose. We would have all this choice. And so I started thinking through it, and I was like, so where in the church do we get to have choice for ourselves?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I don't feel like I need to continue after that statement, but I started to go through and I was like, well, they teach us how to dress. They tell us what's appropriate to talk. They can tell us what we can do on Sunday. They tell us how to pray, what words to use. The lessons at church, you couldn't go away from the booklet. You had to stick with that. So many things. So many things. And I was like, oh, it's Satan's plan. It was Satan's plan, y'all. Okay, so if the war in heaven was real, the Mormon church is wrong.
So let it be written.
So that was like a huge one for me, and I came home and I was like, honey, we're not following Jesus' plan, it's Satan's plan. And that was like, boom.
Wow.
See,
and
we
do you remember that day? Oh, go ahead.
I think I was like brushing my teeth or something. All what?
Well, like, we didn't even know about the church history crap when we left.
That's
we
true.
Knew nothing about
Do you know what?
any
That's
of
the
that.
part. That's the part of the story that we didn't talk
A lot
about.
of people are leaving.
I just
because
left
of that.
based on the way it made me feel and how I was finding peace.
Yep.
I didn't do the church. We did the church history about a year after you left, so it'd been a few years for me by
We didn't
then.
know anything.
So timeline wise, to make everyone understand, so you left in about what year was it that you actually told her you were done?
I want to say 2011-ish.
Okay,
Probably
so
about 2011.
then
I
it was
was
a year later that she had her.
Mm-hmm.
The church is Satan's plan.
Yeah.
And then a year after that is kind of when you started delving into church history.
Yeah, probably
Okay.
about that.
Cool.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and it just solidified, what we'd come to. But
Well, and I think that's when we both experienced the anger phase. I know a lot of ex-Mormons go through the anger phase. Our anger phase we actually did experience together after we had gone through our own relationship phase.
can I expose you for a moment?
I can cut it out if he doesn't want
All right.
it.
Okay. So one time Mike had been doing research on church history. I'm not a detailed person, so I wasn't doing any research. But he had started to dig in. And he came in crying one day and was like, did you know that Brigham Young was...
Oh.
What he was doing to the people? Explain
He's such
what was
nightmare
that? Where
of
he
a
was
human
slitting
being.
people's throats.
Well, they were executing on the blood oath covenant.
Yeah, the blood
that
oath
they-
covenant.
Man.
Like, he
And-
was just a mess.
I mean, he had a hitman. Brigham Young had a hitman. We all know this is well documented. He tried to cover his tracks on his association with the Mountain Meadows Massacre. It was awful. And I know it's kind of interesting because watching church from the sidelines now, and I'm not into it a whole lot, but I occasionally see posts on social media and stuff, and I'm like, wow, it seems to me like the church is really trying to distance themselves from belief in the Book of Mormon and their history. Those are the two things that they're trying to distance themselves from. And Brigham Young is kind of a nightmare. he's a nightmare of a person when you start to understand what he really did to. He's the classic example of a cult leader that believes that the ends justify the means.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's just dangerous in any organization. So
it is.
Brigham Young did some bad things, and it was very upsetting to me to learn about that.
No.
Yes. I just want to comment that I love that your journey out of the church, it wasn't just like, see, I don't want this to sound offensive, but it wasn't like, you found out Joseph Smith was a bad guy, and then all of a sudden you jump off the boat. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I don't think there's any wrong reason to leave. Right. But I just think it's cool that your journey was like, you know what? There's something about this that doesn't feel right. And you were true to yourself, even though you didn't have the validation that,
not really.
You know what I mean? Because it took me getting the proof and stuff to feel like I could leave. Because I was so scared. But I just think it's so cool that you said, you know what? This doesn't feel right to me. I'm going to be true to myself. I'm going to be true to what I think God is or the universe or whatever, and, you know, go on this path. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's an interesting distinction. I hadn't really thought of it till you pulled it apart like that. Yeah, it is true that, at least for my own personal experience, that as soon as I was looking for peace first because I wasn't finding the peace. So I can only imagine people that feel that turmoil, they're not finding the peace, and then instantly seeing all the negative church history stuff. Ouch, that would hurt.
To go from zero to...
Because I felt really betrayed, and here's another thing. Not only did I feel betrayed and duped, like, for so long, as I'm sure many of us have, then I kind of had some guilt around my mission service, because I baptized a lot of people, and I was like... I just had to come to the place of peace of like, you know what, they're on their own journey. I was doing the best that I could at that time in my life, just as they were, and they're going to find themselves either into more religion or they're going to find themselves out of it. You know, I can't take responsibility for everyone's personal journey, just like, you know, none of us can. So, but it's more of just holding the awareness and the hope that everyone finds peace in their own way.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Awesome. Is there something on my face?
No, something.
No, she's just laughing at my face.
You must have a story.
No, if I have weird looks on my face, I just have the church giggles.
You got the church giggles. I can relate.
Giggles.
I would always...
temple giggles.
It would be like during...
Giggles.
We'd be doing like ceilings, me and Jared.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's supposed to be all reverent
giggles.
and serious.
And then Jared would give me a look, and he'd be like, "What are you laughing at?" And I'd be like... And that would make me laugh more. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So they kind of doing this research, just your perspective on finding out some of the things you found out, how it made you feel. You were already kind of out by then, but
I was angry for a while.
Yeah,
we were both angry for a while. Now I need to explain something too that was really important. Is that you know, I already explained he didn't vent to me. He didn't bash the church or anything. It's important that you find someone you can vent to if you are in this process, and it's not your spouse that's still in the church, y'all.
It doesn't help.
That's not a good situation.
It will just prove the church right, and they'll be like, "Oh, yep, he's getting angry and bitter," which you do. You do get angry and bitter.
You need to
but you need to show that you've got love in your heart and all those light, fuzzy things that you do. You have more love because you're being more true to yourself.
True.
But save the venting for someone who understands and can handle it, and it's not going to get back to your spouse.
Yeah, like that YouTube.
Really important.
YouTube, that's a great resource.
Like this.
This is a cool community.
Send us an email, make a comment, and get it out that way.
Yes.
Well, and you know, we've always kind of had this idea in the back of our head. I know we've talked about this a few times of people should know that there's support out there for couples who are going through a faith crisis and a faith transition, because you know, I don't want the church to be proved right that because there's a change in a belief system that the marriage has to end. I don't think that's fair. Like,
oh yeah, people in the ward started
we got some
were getting
rumors.
Divorced when Mike left. And one of my friends said the bishop's wife was like, "So when are they getting divorced?"
Yeah.
And she was like,
that was really hurtful.
Mike and Ariane have a great relationship. I'm not sure what you've heard.
Oh, that's so hard.
All the gossiping and stuff that was going on in our neighborhood was really hurtful.
And you know, it's been 7-8 years now, so we're not really bitter anymore. But at the time, like was literally the hardest thing we've ever done. Like, I cried so freaking much.
Yeah.
So, well, you know how our family was. It was amazing.
Oh, boy.
Lots of support.
Love and just unconditional acceptance.
That's a whole nother podcast, too.
Unconditional.
Podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So we came up with like a do's and don'ts list.
So what Mike and Ariane have for us here is they have a list of some do's and don'ts while you are going through a mixed faith marriage. There is so many challenges that you're facing, and they have some great advice to kind of help you guys. Because like Mike said earlier, there's no manual. But, you know, experience is our best teacher. So
I'll read a don't, then we can comment. So don't put God before your spouse. I know, that kind of goes against...
that's kind of more towards the person in the church than
right,
the people leaving.
Right.
That's
what
part.
I'm saying. We're going through this as like for those going through a transition.
I know, but the people going through the transition...
probably aren't watching the channel. Or you talking about...
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, the tricky thing we were saying is the church teaches God before
everyone.
Yeah.
And then that's...
So it's a catch-22.
It's kind of it is a catch-22.
It's great advice.
Right.
And the way you could even back that up to a Mormon perspective would be that, you know, family is most important.
Yeah.
And that God wants your marriage to work.
Yeah.
And so just remembering that. And so it's great advice. Now, people may not be willing to hear it, right? But it's still great advice.
Yes. Yeah,
exactly.
no, that's a good point.
Okay. We already mentioned this, but don't vent to your spouse. Badmouth the church. Try to show them the CES letter.
Yeah, probably want to hold off on the CES
won't
letter.
Handle it very well.
For a few minutes. Give it a few minutes. Then you bring out the big guns. If you need to.
After their shelf is breaking.
Yeah. Here's a do that I thought was really important. We were talking about this on the drive up today. We were in the car for a few hours. So do have the utmost empathy for your spouse. So during the crisis, have the utmost empathy.
You leaving is so hard on them. Mm-hmm. And that won't be your perspective because leaving is so hard on you.
Yes. Right.
It's so hard on both.
It was so hard on me leaving, but try to have that empathy so that you're not so defensive when they may have a reaction that is uncomfortable for you.
That's wonderful advice.
Do we need to close this with our testimonies?
Absolutely. In the name of Buddha.
Do find an outlet, a safe person, so that you can clear through your stuff. And it was really huge for me to journal.
Yeah.
And really write down like what was going on in my head. Not even so much what other people thought or were saying, but what I felt in my heart. And something Mike told me one time, and it's stuck with me ever since, is never question a decision you made when you were in the light.
Wow.
Because there were so many times where I'd have these beautiful meditations and I would just connect. And I felt it. You feel it here, And then later on, I would start to question. You know how it is. You'd start to question, like, I don't know. Was that really the good choice?
Creeping back
it is
in.
the fear. It's the fear that comes in, and you think it's the Holy Ghost, but it's not. It's fear talking that way, because God would not come in that way. Yeah. Anyway, so he told me that, and I've kind of, it's always stuck with me. Just don't question those choices that you made when you were in a good place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that really stuck with me. And being very loving, empathetic, like he said, and I think talking about, if the other spouse isn't willing to communicate,
it's kind of tough.
Willing to be open and understanding of where you're at, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, like that opens up a whole nother, I think, grieving process. Because I think like leaving the church is a grieving process in and of itself. But then to lose a marriage on top of that adds a whole nother component that I think so many people have to deal with. It's really hard. We know a family that went through a triple whammy. They went through the full trifecta of like the worst things to go through. Oh. They the husband left the church. He had like a bunch of kids, came out as gay.
Wow.
And they got divorced within like a few month period of time. And how hard that must have been on that family. That's like the triple whammy, right?
Yeah.
All three of those things.
Yeah.
And, it makes, I think challenges make us who we are. So looking back, even though in the moment when we were going through all that stuff, you wake up every day and there's like this heaviness and darkness that you have to find a way to get to a light place or a peaceful place. But once you get through it, when you look back on those experiences, like it's all good. You wouldn't change it, right? It's just part of your path. It's part of your story.
Yeah.
So even though we went through some really tough stuff, for an amount of time, looking back, like I'd never want to change that. It made us who we are today.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So then, any further advice when it comes to like being in that mixed faith marriage, like where you always hope that the spouse is going to leave the other spouse, right?
And they're hoping you come back.
And and so how do you deal with that? And because for some people, I mean, they've been out of the church for 10, 20, 30 years and their spouse is still in.
Yeah.
Right. Any advice you guys have? Because you navigated that, for some time. Yeah. But if
Not
you have
10.
any thoughts, yeah.
I mean, there's having the empathy part, I think, is most important. But there's a whole technique called empathic assertion. So you can actually assert a viewpoint or an opinion, assert it on someone, and if you do it with empathy at its core, that person's able to take that suggestion without defensiveness. So I don't know. There's ways of doing this. I mean,
and I think expectation is huge.
Yeah.
If you're expecting them to leave or they're expecting you to come back, then you are going to be disappointed. Every time it doesn't happen, you're going to be disappointed every single time.
So you always want to have, communicate the other person's viewpoint first and then your viewpoint, and then you offer suggestions. So it could be something like, hey, I understand how important it is. You're making eyes at me. I understand how important it is that you feel like you made this commitment to go to church every Sunday, and I understand why that's so important to you. And as I'm going through my own self-discovery, I'm learning what my new commitments are, and it does look a little bit differently. And because my commitments look a little bit differently than yours, in order for me to find peace and for you to find peace, can we suggest that, we can talk this through on a, occasional basis so that we're on the same page, because my relationship with you is more important than my relationship with the church.
That's beautiful.
So maybe you're queuing it up that way. I do like leadership development type stuff for a lot of companies, and that's one of the assertion tools that we use that can be very effective.
That's so smart. And I think that advice that ARIANE was saying with this that was the most powerful for us, and it's don't have expectations.
Yeah.
Because ultimately you're not in control of that person.
Yeah.
And putting any kind of pressure on them, it's all about just loving them.
Love.
Yeah, exactly the way they are. There you go. I feel like once I stopped trying to convert Jared and he stopped trying to deconvert me, that's when the communication came back.
Yeah.
And when we could talk, then that's when I started opening my mind up to more possibilities. So
absolutely.
So yeah, awesome. So then fast forwarding, kind of you went through this, you kind of came out together. You had a lot of family issues, and maybe we'll talk about that another time. But tell us a little bit about your life now and what it's like, and on the other side.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Oh my gosh,
we're good. We're happy.
I was a pretty judgmental person before.
You don't realize how judgmental.
Just
until
being honest,
we all?
I made apologies to people years later after.
Really?
Yes, after realizing my best friend in college. This is terrible. I was sleeping over at my boyfriend's house often down at college, freedom. And my friend had R-rated movies, and I was like, I don't think you should be watching R-rated movies. Yeah, I'm not even going to tell you how bad it, like, I said some terrible things. Terrible things. I've judged myself for a long time about that. Now I'm just owning it.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I was super judgy. And so now I don't feel the need to judge everybody's porn shoulders. I mean, mainly because I wear porn shoulders all the time.
There you go.
But I think you have a hard time relaxing and enjoying things because you're like, oh my God, there was a cuss word in that song.
Yeah.
So no, I can't enjoy the song.
Or,
yeah.
she's wearing some short shorts. I need to judge her.
So our life, I mean, I would say...
It's just happier now.
Yeah, our life now
it's
is just
lighter,
happier.
lighter,
we
freer.
I
can laugh at dirty jokes now.
We have a great group of friends. Most of us are
amazing friends.
Amazing friends.
We have so much fun.
We're in the middle of Game of Thrones right now.
Oh, really?
So,
as like a group?
No, just us.
We're a little
we
behind the
binge
game.
later
It's
after the final
very
episode. So season 8 came out and everybody was upset. But so now we're binging the whole thing. We're almost done.
Nice.
But that wouldn't have happened before.
No,
if we were
I
still
still
in church.
don't totally tell everyone I watch that.
Yeah. No, our biggest thing is just we're parents trying to do right by our children day in and day out. That's
and we have really cool conversations
great
with our
conversations.
kids.
I was actually going to ask
we're
about your
so
kids.
open with our kids. In fact, sometimes the kids are like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, stop!" Like that's too much information.
So just so they know, your kids don't attend church.
No.
Right?
No.
And that was their choice too, right? You left it up to them.
Yeah.
Our oldest is 15, and then girl 15, girl 13, boy 11, girl 9. And yeah, we've actually told them, you're welcome to go to church, but most of them didn't like it. My oldest, honestly, she has chosen not to take her name off yet. For whatever reason, I think it's more social for her, like the fear that
Which
her
is
friends
fine.
will find out.
Absolutely.
And we
If
said
that's
that's
the
totally
motive,
fine.
of course.
Yeah, so we've left it up to them, but honestly, who chooses to go to church?
When you're a kid or a teenager.
When you have to sit for 3 hours with no snacks.
As a
No
TBM, as a TBM, you
sacrament
better
is
get
a
yourself
snack.
there.
You get a piece of bread.
Not much of a snack.
It didn't tide you over.
I was
No.
always starving. I was sneaking candy in third hour. I'm like, these poor kids. Like, the primary director was like, you can't feed them candy. They need to learn. And I was like, but I'm hungry, so I'm going to feed it to them so I can eat it also.
That's right.
Oh gosh, that's too good. I remember being so grateful when I was pregnant so that I could like bring snacks to church without judgment.
Right, because
Yeah.
you're pregnant. That makes it all okay. But yeah, it's so fun with our kids because we have some cool conversations and we're able to kind of ask them, well, what do you think about, I don't know, Mystery of the Universe or something, and get their opinion as opposed to us being like, well, this is how it is, and Noah's Ark was real.
And if you think differently, you're wrong.
Yes. So it's cool because
A few of our kids have very scientific, pragmatic, logical minds. And so, like the whole Noah's Ark thing or evolution, if you can offer up the, if you can offer up the explanation from a logical perspective instead of storytelling, which is what a lot of the Bible stories are, just storytelling. Oh, that's my plug for a great book, by the way. Sapiens. Have you read the book Sapiens?
No, you've told me about it. I need to.
Oh, it's an incredible book. Read Sapiens. It kind of... It explains so much about why we do, why we believe in what we believe for a social construct so that we can learn how to get along. So religion fit that need for thousands of years. Here we are in the 21st century. We've got to get better stories. Wouldn't you agree?
That is
like,
so
we need
well
better
said.
stories
So
than
well
the
said.
ones that are
I've
like...
seen a lot of people part the sea. Just
yeah, here we go.
it's believable.
Oh boy.
She's been, since leaving the church, smoking a lot of the marijuana.
No, you're the one wearing those socks.
Oh gosh.
The Mary Jane socks. There we
marijuana
go.
socks.
See, she's promoting people. She's promoting.
Drug paraphernalia. No, my friend actually got these socks for me from Japan. I don't know why but I loved them.
Might as well.
Might as
Yeah.
well represent my. I actually wore these when I was a member too, and no member knows what they are, so no one ever questioned
Like,
it.
what's that funny shaped leaf on your sock?
What's that leaf?
She's just a nature girl. She's just meditating.
There you go. So before we close up, any other closing thoughts, any advice for someone who's fresh in the transition or considering transitioning?
Be patient. Jinx.
Damn, they are good.
Be patient.
Yeah, be patient with yourself. Don't, like with Morgan, I just kept saying, you know what, give yourself time. Don't force yourself to make a decision right now. Decide what's right for you, because some people question maybe and stay. And that's okay. Like, there's not a right or wrong answer. I actually do feel like I would never want my parents to leave the church, because I don't know what they would do with their time. They don't have friends. They don't have hobbies. Like,
yes.
And they would be distraught after 70 years in the church, you know? So
I agree with that.
It works for some people. I don't necessarily love the way they treat me, because it doesn't work for me. But, you know, be patient with yourself, and, you know, don't be afraid to find someone to talk to, and, you know, roll things off. And there are good things in the church, I'm just going to say. And that's, I think, what kept me holding on for a little while.
Yeah, the good things that you love.
It's because I was like, oh man, but what about this? Because I felt the Spirit there. And what about this? But then I realized I felt the Spirit in my own meditation. So I guess I didn't lose the gift of the Spirit.
To me, it's always so interesting to think about, you know, hey, I must be a good person because I believed this. And to go through that experience of discovering that you're a good person and you don't have to believe stuff, it's kind of a beautiful thing. Because it's like, you know, some of my best friends are atheists, and or I have Catholic friends, Jewish friends, Christian friends, Muslim friends. It doesn't matter. When you let go of like the story and the belief system, you're a good person because that's our nature. Mm-hmm. And I think like religion tries to tell us that our nature is bad, but actually I think it's the opposite. I think our nature is naturally good. Wow. That we're compassionate, that we want to be there for other people, that we want to do right by ourselves and right by the people that we love and care about the most. Wow. So that's, to me, what peace is all about, and coming to a full acceptance of everyone can have a different belief system than you, and it's all okay. Yeah. And I really do think that we got to the point in our relationship where we were at peace. We could have functioned, whether you were in the church or out of the church. We could have functioned, but it wasn't amazing. As amazing. No, now. Exactly. And I forgot to tell you something. So, one of my fears for those of you, if you are freshly questioning, I thought I was going to become a slut and a drunk,
and she has. She
self-fulfilling prophecy, right there.
Of course you
I did not just call my wife a slut on camera.
Yeah, so no, for reals, like that was an actual fear, because the church brainwashes you into thinking that
that's what happens.
The church keeps you. And I actually, not that long ago, I had someone messaging me on Facebook because I had shared the CES letter. I don't bash, but I just shared that one time anyway, and she was like, so how do you keep yourself doing good things and meditating and so forth? And I was like, well, that's just kind of a part of who I am. And, you know, I've just realized that I don't need that, that crutch to help me be a good person. And she was like, wow, I don't think I'd be that strong.
Right. Well, and see, that belief it makes sense with the cults will teach you that you're not trustworthy. Right. That you can't be a good person without them. Yeah. And so it makes sense why someone would think that. Yeah. And I remember thinking the same thing you thought, like, oh, if I leave the church, I'm going to turn into an alcoholic.
And you did.
And I did. I also did.
Wow, 2 for 2.
I know. We're both super drunk right now. Even.
Wow.
Amazing how articulate we are. But, and I love also what Mike said about just this whole idea that, you know, because the church is trying to get you to not trust yourself. You were born evil and all that. But in life, we're learning that we are good. Just because we are. Inherently. You know? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
That's our nature.
Inherently, people are good.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Y'all are good.
Y'all are good.
can I just say, if anybody wants to reach out to us, you can email us. If anybody needs support, if they want to have a listening ear, are you cool with that?
Sure.
So, email address found below.
There you go. There
Down
you
below.
go.
That's weird.
Yes.
Feel free to reach out. Would be happy to step in and help if there's anything that we can do if you're going through a faith transition within a relationship and want another perspective.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you both for taking this time to be on this channel with me.
Namaste.
And seriously, I love you guys so much. I love this interview, and I really hope to have you guys back to talk about more interesting topics and just how wonderful it is that we can put this out there for other people so they don't have to feel as alone as we did.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely, we were alone.
Yes. So, yay! So, you guys, if you want to support us, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and thank you guys. And we're going to have their emails so that you guys can reach out to them, thank them for being such awesome volunteers, and reach out if you have any questions or want some advice from them. Thank you guys, and we will see you in the next video. Peace!